Society often displays a strong fixation on acquiring new possessions. New clothing, new vehicles, new smartphones, and more. However, are we truly ready to adapt to a new global order? This impending transformation is attributed to the developing strategies within the BRICS alliance, as they work towards establishing a BRICS currency, which could potentially alter our lives for either the better or the worse. Ahoy there, Nova Society enthusiasts! The financial adventure of a lifetime awaits. If you're not already on this amazing journey, come on in and subscribe to our community. Behind the scenes, there is currently a struggle for the concept of money with Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, or the BRICS group, composed of emerging economies, leading the charge. This group, consisting of more than 40% of the world's population and a quarter of the global economy, is seeking to challenge the existing world order, which appears to be dominated by the US and its Western allies. As part of this effort, they are creating a new world reserve currency. This development stems from the BRICS alliance, a coalition of 5 countries, and to illustrate their growing power, consider these statistics. By the conclusion of 2023, they are projected to control 25% of all exported goods, equivalent to approximately 29% of the world's GDP, which measures the total global production in a single year. Furthermore, they will account for 43% of the world's oil production and represent 46% of the world's population. All of these changes are expected to take place by the end of this year. The BRICS countries have already surpassed the G7 nations in terms of purchasing power parity, which assesses living standards. They are also projected to account for around 50% of the global workforce and collectively control roughly 1/4 of the world's land area. So who wants to join the group?
This year's chair, South Africa, says over 40 countries have expressed interest in joining. Iran has said it hopes the club will pin down the new membership process as soon as possible. Oil heavyweight Saudi Arabia has the backing of Russia and Brazil. And Argentina says it has China's support. One of Africa's fastest growing economies, Ethiopia, says it's asked to join.
With so many countries wanting to join the alliance, there's something that the BRICS group aims to do. The new currency system they are developing is rumored to return to the gold standard. All of these efforts are designed to challenge the dominance of the US and the Western world and initiate the process of de-dollarization worldwide.
He expressed his position in Shanghai during the inauguration of former Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff as the head of the new development bank, also known as the BRICS Bank. Lula's remarks are certain to please his Chinese hosts, as Beijing has been challenging the US global dominance in recent years.
This transition has already begun, as the central bank's share of dollar reserves has dropped to a 20-year low, standing at 58%. Even the head of marketing research at JP Morgan recently stated that the significance of the dollar has significantly diminished between 2014 and 2022. This situation raises several questions. Who are these countries and why are they challenging the dollar? What issues are associated with the dollar itself? And if they succeed, could this lead to Ray Dalio's prediction that all world reserve currencies will inevitably lose their status? This is undeniably one of the most significant developments occurring on a worldwide scale in the realms of politics, investments, and economics. Let's begin by addressing the initial question regarding the identity of these countries. Jim O'Neill, an economist at Goldman Sachs, drew attention to the remarkable growth rates in Brazil, Russia, India, and China, which were collectively referred to as the rising stars due to their rapidly expanding economies. However, these nations didn't formally unite until 8 years later, following the global recession of 2009. The global financial crisis raised doubts about the trustworthiness of the US-led global financial system, prompting members of the emerging market and global south to question its relevance. This led to the first official meeting of the BRIC countries in Russia in 2009. Subsequently, South Africa joined the group, giving rise to BRICS. Now, the second question is why they are pursuing this course of action and challenging the dominance of the US dollar, especially when the dollar appears to be performing well, as indicated by the strengthening of the DXY index. The answer to this question is exceedingly intricate. The prevailing global order, as we recognize it today, which is responsible for shaping the world as we know it, was primarily established following World War II. This arrangement remained relatively unchanged until the current period when it was transforming. Let's roll back to history. In 1945, President Franklin Roosevelt organized a secret wartime gathering that would have profound and enduring consequences for the course of human history. Unfortunately, very limited records were maintained from that meeting. However, during this meeting, Roosevelt committed to the King of Saudi Arabia, promising protection in exchange for exclusive rights for the US to develop oil resources in Saudi Arabia. The petrodollar provided the United States with three significant advantages. Firstly, it brought stability to international trade, as every nation requires a universally trusted currency. Secondly, it elevated the US to a superpower in terms of investment assets, including treasury bonds, real estate, and stocks. This is why historical data spanning the past 8 decades shows substantial profits from investing in US assets compared to those in any other country globally. Thirdly, it established a critical link between energy resources and the US dollar, which greatly contributed to the United States and the Western world's dominance. This link means that as long as the world needs energy or seeks profitable investments, it necessitates the use of US dollars. However, the real superpower in this situation, which compelled these nations to unite and form their alliance, lies in the fact that when you are a world reserve currency, you can mitigate the negative effects of printing money. Traditionally, excessive money printing is associated with inflation. Still, in the case of a world reserve currency, particularly if managed skillfully, it grants the nation a unique ability. However, this situation would mean that if the reserve currency nation acts irresponsibly with its money supply or encounters a recession, it can impact the entire world. This is partly why. When we observe the world today, we see inflation peaking in countries like the UK, Italy, and Germany, with some nations experiencing double-digit inflation rates, while US inflation is relatively lower. The chain of issues that the world is experiencing can lead to inflation, higher prices for food and gas, and increased rent costs. Ultimately, the middle class bears the brunt of this economic turmoil, which is detrimental to politicians and those in positions of authority. Therefore, the theory suggests that the US focuses on allocating money to address the problems of other countries first. This approach helps in building a robust foreign policy, fostering alliances beneficial for global interests, lowering inflation, and ideally making a positive impact around the world. Much of this strategy revolves around the creation of demand and use for the US dollar. If you are a country in need of borrowing money, where can you turn to? While you might consider printing your own money, the consequences of inflation and rising prices deter many from this path, and such actions could lead to regime change. The solution for countries in need of financial assistance is often turning to international financial institutions such as the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund (IMF). The IMF functions like a global financial piggy bank funded by contributions from nations worldwide. Developing countries can request loans to finance infrastructure projects or other initiatives, typically at reasonable interest rates. However, not everyone believes this power and influence are distributed fairly. For instance, the BRICS countries hold only around 14 to 15% of the voting power within the EMF, leading to concerns about fairness. It's worth noting that the majority of the world's foreign exchange reserves are held in US dollars, with approximately 58% stored in this currency by central banks. If a country primarily maintains its wealth in US dollars, this dependence could become problematic. Recent events have shown how international reserves can be frozen, limiting trade possibilities.
Everyone freeze!
Nevertheless, a powerful nation with the ability to produce its food and energy and use alternative currencies for trade can withstand such pressure. However, for less powerful countries that can't independently manufacture essential goods, the question remains, where can they borrow money without incurring unwelcome obligations? The answer is to establish your bank, which is precisely what the BRICS Group's solution involves. They created the ND, the New Development Bank, which functions as their equivalent to the INFOD. One of the key reasons for becoming a part of the BRICS alliance is to gain access to the NDB. Since its establishment in 2014, this bank has already approved loans exceeding $30 billion for development and infrastructure projects. The availability of funding from this bank, which appears to offer more favorable terms compared to traditional development banks like the World Bank or the IMF, is an appealing prospect for many nations. However, a significant portion of NTB's funds is still held in US dollars to this day. This is why these countries are joining forces to potentially create their currency backed by gold, aiming to reduce their dependence on the US dollar. So, if these countries succeed in establishing an alternative form of currency, how will it affect the United States? The potential impact would be adverse for the US over an extended period. Both investors and the middle class could face negative consequences. Investors. If confidence in the US dollar diminishes and its demand decreases, investors might withdraw their investments from the US. This would reduce the interest in acquiring assets such as US stocks and real estate. For the middle class, reduced demand for the US dollar could lead to inflation. Whenever the US prints more money to address domestic issues, as it often does, and cannot distribute those dollars to other nations that no longer require them, it would result in an increased supply of dollars within the US. This, in turn, could lead to higher prices, as is already being observed, particularly affecting the price of oil, which contributes to higher inflation in the US with the current trend of de-dollarization. Here's what Lawrence H. Summers, the former US Treasury Secretary, has to say.
I think the lesson of history is clear. We might have the dollar lose its status, but if we do, it will be the least of our problems. If the dollar loses its status, it will be because the United States is no longer respected and strong in the world. It will be because we've accumulated a set of untenable debts.
The process of de-dollarization has been ongoing for several decades, but it's uncertain how long it will take to fully materialize. BRICS countries themselves aren't entirely certain about the course of action they should take. Critics argue that the BRICS group is less powerful than it once was because its member countries have varying goals and struggle to reach a consensus. Some members aim to expand the group by inviting more countries, while others prefer maintaining positive relationships with the US and using the BRICS alliance as a way to negotiate better terms without entirely excluding the US. Supporters of BRICS believe that if these countries can reach an agreement and create a currency separate from the dollar, but equally influential, it could have positive implications. It might promote economic prosperity worldwide, resulting in less conflict, reduced poverty, and potentially global peace. However, the outcome is uncertain, and we are witnessing a historic transformation. How do you feel about the upcoming BRICS currency? From the standpoint of an individual belonging to the middle class, this might raise concerns regarding the potential for significant inflation rates and increased prices of commodities. However, are we as a global community ready to let go of the US dollar in pursuit of establishing a new world order? If you want to learn more about personal finance and generational wealth building strategies, visit our channel and subscribe for more enlightening videos to increase your wealth.